Welcome to The Author's Journey with #1 international best-selling author and in-demand publisher, Rebecca Hall Gruyter. Today, we'll showcase the works of an amazing best-selling author, find out the story behind their book, and explore ways to bring your message powerfully forward. Now, here's your host, Rebecca Hall Gruyter.
Welcome, everyone. I hope that you're having an amazing day. Excited to be connecting in with you where we talk with amazing best-selling authors and experts that are leaning in to share their experience with us, share their wisdom, share their insight with us so that we can incorporate that into our journey and learn how to bring our messages forward more powerfully and effectively. And I think there's great insight and opportunity when somebody's willing to pull back the curtain a little bit and really share what the experience is like as an expert, as an author, so we can learn from that. We can have a bit of an understanding of what that journey is like. So welcome to the author's journey. Honored to have you as listeners leaning into the conversation and very excited to introduce our powerful guest with you. But I want you to get the most out of our time together today. So before I do that, I'm going to encourage you to slow down, take a breath, a little bit more, and then breathe out like you're breathing out through a straw. And just take a moment to center. To slow down a little bit. We move so fast in life, and it's hard to hear and receive when we're always in motion and doing. So this is a time for you to be still, to receive, to be poured into. And I actually encourage taking some notes during the conversation so that you can further internalize what's being shared and hopefully take some of this information, insight, and wisdom forward with you. So this time is for you. Choose to be fully present, centered, ready to receive, because our amazing guest has so much to share and to pour into you. And I want to make sure you receive everything that is here for you. So let's take one more breath together. Wonderful. Great. And then I will introduce our amazing guest. So Matt Granados has, for the past decade, he has tested, developed, and helped others implement an effective and duplicatable system that can help motivate even the most unmotivated people in your life, that there's actually a way to do that, which I think is wonderful. And he's fine-tuned that. He has the way that we can motivate ourselves and others in our life, which is so powerful. These techniques have been taught and implemented in organizations around the world. And just to name a few, Google, Twitter, and the U.S. Air Force. Matt is a #1 international best-selling author, a featured columnist, and sought-after expert in his field. Please lean in and warmly welcome the powerful and motivated Matt Granados to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, Rebecca, as always, and excited to talk about this. This is a side of the author's life that few people get to talk about and everyone's kind of scared of. So excited to dive in.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your willingness to, pull back the curtain and share. And I thought to set the stage a little bit, I'd love for you to talk about a little bit about motivation. So why is that work important to you? Why have you committed so much of your life's work to helping people understand motivation and being motivated?
Simply put, because of how it's impacted my life, right? And I think that's how a lot of authors start this journey. But motivation in general, the biggest discovery that made me go, I need to share this message, is recognize that motivation is not a character trait, it's a state of mind. So individuals are not unmotivated as a being, right? It's just where their head is at that moment. And if that's a state of mind, I've been in sales before. I'm always in sales. I always joke, if your mouth's moving, you're selling something. So if motivation is just a state of mind, I can change people's states of mind. And because of that, I can now motivate the unmotivated.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that important distinction that it's a state of mind. It's not a character trait. So it can change, it can shift, and we can make choices in that. And do you have a success story or something that when you're needing motivation, you think of that helps you make that shift?
So what we found is there's 4 motivational catalysts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And catalyst is a chemical reaction that sparks another reaction. And that's what we found works. So what these 4 catalysts are surrounded around freedom, acknowledgement, connectivity, and support. I'm an acknowledgement kind of guy. I like to be told good job. And I don't mean that in kind of a vain perspective, like I deserve to get acknowledged. It's just, hey, if you want to motivate me, tell me good job and I'll run through the wall. That's all I need. But other people need different things. So I know what I need to get motivated. What I found works for me is getting up, changing my physical state, and then going back into it, almost giving myself a break, but doing something active to do it. So right now, this phone call is something that I'm using to re-spark motivation to get back into writing my new book that's coming out later on in 2021. So it's kind of a cool thing to do this podcast and answer this question. As far as a success story, though, my favorite one right now, the most recent one was we have an individual who worked for a company, and the companies bring us in usually, or we work directly with clients one-on-one. And this individual was trying to increase their sales in the company. And it kept asking for more money, kept asking for more time off, all this stuff. And eventually we find out what his motivational catalyst was. And when we realized that, we tied it to what he likes to do. He likes to run long-distance races, marathons, Ironman, things like that. So we tied his goal in work and his personal goals all to a reward that meant something to him, which we call PVTT, personal value tied to task. So we, every quarter, if he hits his goals, his company buys him a new pair of running shoes. And every time he goes running, he takes a picture with the shoes and sends it to me and his manager saying, thank you. And it reminds us the fact that we need to motivate people the way they need to be motivated. And that's what our entire system and the entire book is about, on how do you figure that out so you can give people more of what they want, help them get more of what needs to be done.
So powerful. I love that. Thank you for sharing, and that importance of finding what motivates others, what motivates ourselves, and recognizing that can be different, and then tying it into those things that are personal to that person, to ourselves, that motivates and uplifts us. And I'm honored that we get to be part of motivating you in writing your next book and bringing that forward.
Exactly.
That's really special. So I appreciate that opportunity. And would you share the title of your book that became a #1 international best-selling book that you released earlier this year?
Yep. So it's called Motivate the Unmotivated, and it's a proven system for sustainable motivation.
Wonderful. And do you mind sharing a little bit, just a quick snapshot, because we're pulling back the curtain. What was it like to release your first book? How did that feel? Were you excited? Were you nervous before it was released? And then as it was accepted and became a bestseller, #1 international, went through all those levels to #1 international bestseller, multiple countries and categories, multiple #1s. What was a little bit of that experience like for you?
So I think the release of it is similar to achieving any goal. Not to downplay how awesome that feeling is, but to recognize that without understanding the journey, that actually doesn't mean anything, right? Like getting that sticker was great, and that's what we wanted, and we wanted to get it to as many people as possible, and we continue to do that. But in reality, for what it meant to me as the author is nothing if I don't remember what the journey was like from getting to that I want to write a book to I have a book in my hand, right? And that's the biggest thing. So the feeling was amazing, but it was almost like when you're celebrating your birthday, right? Like it's a lot of fun, but it's only moment, it's for a moment, and you'll remember you're going to be at that age forever until next year, then you're 1 year earlier or later. But what I recognized with this was it's still just a great feeling. It's a feeling that gives more credibility to myself, for myself, because a lot of the stuff when you write it, as an author and as a writer, and I wouldn't even consider myself a writer. Technically, I'm an author, right? But a writer is a whole art form. I like to share messages. But the art form of writing is a little bit different. But recognizing the fact that sometimes we sit there and go, does anyone care about this? Like Like, I think it's really important. Does anyone else think they care about this? And once they read it, are they going to want to read it again or share it with somebody else? So getting that ranking of number one international bestseller just kind of put a nail in the coffin. And any doubts I had on what it is we're teaching or how we're teaching it, to recognize this stuff works, it is valuable, and other people find value in it as well.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. We are getting ready to go to our first commercial break. And as we do that, listeners, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of take in what Matt has shared with us. And you may be in different places on your journey of looking at bringing your message forward and your book forward. And I think it's great to think about some of what he's sharing and what some of that journey was like, and remembering what motivates him, what brings him forward, why he's launching it, and what having it received so powerfully meant to him. So take a couple moments and just take that in, and we will continue our conversation in just 2 minutes.
Announcing a powerful new TV channel featuring programs designed to enhance and transform your life. Make powerful connections, one program at a time. And by doing so, we can bring transformation to the world. Tune in each week to Empowered Connections TV as we add new programs to help you make empowered connections of your own. Visit empoweredconnectionstv.com. That's empoweredconnectionstv.com. And make the most of an incredible life transformation.
Rebecca Hall Gruyter's Speaker Talent Search is looking for speakers wanting to get on more stages. With just one audition, you could open the doors to hundreds of speaking opportunities, reach more people, and expand your impact. Finalists get to audition live in front of leaders looking to fill all kinds of speaking opportunities. Apply now at speakertalentsearch.com. That's speakertalentsearch.com. We look forward to hearing your message.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking with Matt Granados about his amazing book, Motivating the Unmotivated, that became a #1 international best-selling book. And he has graciously been and candidly been sharing what the journey is like, and what it meant to him personally as an author, bringing his book forward, having it be so powerfully received. And I wanted to backtrack just a little bit, because we didn't necessarily talk about why you decided to write a book in the first place, because I know that's an undertaking. So I'd love for you to share, I know you're so committed to the work that you do. You're very successful at it. You've helped amazing organizations, powerful individuals, loved the success stories that you shared. But why write a book? Why did you feel led to do that?
So I would say for me, I don't have, I think, the generic authors and writers journey, and that's why I said that last time. I think of myself as more of an author than a writer. But I had these ideas, and I would talk with clients, and the same questions would come up. And then one question that would always come up is, why don't you have this all in a book? I'd love just to be able to read it all instead of have to ask question after question after question. So just serve my clients. I mean, I always tell people the market will tell you what it wants if you listen. And so that's why I decided, I'm going to put a book out there. But I've always wanted to write a book. It's always been kind of this goal of mine that was so far-fetched, because I'm a terrible speller, terrible grammar. I mean, it's unfair to the first editor. I used to have to go through 2 or 3 editors before I can even have a real product that is English. And then what happens is I realized as I started putting it together that this actually is more applicable than just to my clients. I was almost writing like a pamphlet for them. And then as I started doing it, and the snowball started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it started to get broader and broader and broader, I showed it to somebody, and I said, I think this is like a standalone book. And they said, I said, what's the title? I said, I don't know. I got to think about it. And that was where the title came from. So there's a couple ways of how I did it that I think is going to be really helpful for anyone who's like, I just want to write a book, but I don't know where to start. And that's kind of what we do at Life Pulse, right? As we consult, is intentional growth. That's the theme of what we do, intentional growth. So if you want to write a book, I can show you how to write a book. If you want to run an Ironman, I can show you how to run an Ironman. But it all starts with small, simple, easy steps, and we just do it consistently. So that was what triggered it, and that's how we got it going.
I love it. I love it. So, was there something that kept you motivated as you were taking those small steps consistently? Was there something that you were willing to get up and keep adding to that snowball, as you said, as it was creating? Was there something that just had you keep going? Because your book is substantial. There's a lot of great content there. It's not something that could be put together overnight. Like there's a lot of value in it. What kept you moving and motivated and taking each of those steps?
I think it's the structure on how we attack every goal in the programs that we teach. Made it so it wasn't as overbearing as some people might think, right? Like, how do you write a 300-page book with 2 kids, running multiple businesses, multiple nonprofits, active in your community? Like, how do you sit down and write a book? And it was simple. I just did these things that we call time chunks. So I would just set up 90-minute chunks, either 30, 60, 90 minutes. So this is something we teach in all of our content, 30, 60, 90-minute chunks, and I would write. Sometimes I'd get a chapter. Sometimes I'd get half a page and throw it out. And sometimes I would just recognize the fact that I'm not a good writer. I'm trying to get this book done. But sometimes I just start flowing. And what happens is if you do enough 90-minute time chunks, you start putting a good amount of time in. So I would usually my goal would be 3 to 5 90-minute time chunks a week. So that means 3 to 5 days. I would just take an hour and a half, block everything off as if I had a doctor's appointment or something like that, and I just write, see what happens. And I wasn't trying to write a story. I was trying to get ideas out on the paper. It became a book. It didn't start as an organized book. And as I started writing it, I go, oh, wait a minute, that's a good idea, but that should go here. And then I started looking at it like a puzzle. So what kept me motivated was the structure and how I approached it. And I never was overwhelmed by doing it, if that makes sense. If I was to sit down and say, I got to write a book, I promise you the book would be garbage because I would force myself through it because I'm a dumb animal of strong will. And I would push myself through it, and I would submit something to the publisher that was not worth publishing. So that was what, like I said, that's kind of how, it's not that I necessarily kept myself motivated, it's that I didn't allow myself to get overwhelmed by this project.
No, that's really, really powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. And it's very practical. So listeners, anyone who has this dream of, or someday I want to bring a book forward, really breaking it down into pieces. And I like how you just committed to writing. And some days you would throw out parts, other times you would look at it like a puzzle, but that you really honored putting that time in and allowed it to flow out and come out as it did, and then seeing how you could put that together. So really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And speaking of beautiful, your cover is beautiful. So would you mind sharing, a little bit? I always get great comments on it. People, when they see it, they're like, wow, that's such a great cover. I love his cover. It really strikes people in a really positive, powerful way. I'd love for you to describe how you created it, what it looks like, and what it means to you.
Yeah, so whenever it comes to aesthetics, I always have to give credit to my wife, right? The ugliest thing she's ever accepted, I joke about, is me. But everything else, she has a good eye for what looks good. And with that, she's always for clean covers. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, let me get it so busy so it catches everybody's attention. And I realized that there is a way to do both, catch their attention by being clean, if that makes sense, right? The eye likes organization, not chaos. So anyway, so that was kind of how the concept started. And that's why if you look at our cover, you'll see a little bit of what I like and a little bit what she likes, right? The motivated is a little bit energized. And the brain, one side, basically the picture, if I'm trying to describe it to you, one side has no color to it. The other side is kind of alive, is how I would describe it. And what it is, we're taking the unmotivated brain and we're making it motivated because it's all what happens between the ears. So we're trying to tell that story of here's a proven system to make it sustainable. This is not something that tricks the body. This is something that reprograms the brain. And because of that, it works so well and it creates a sustainable model in everything you do. Once we do this with companies and with clients, they understand how to do it and they can do it themselves. And the book title or the cover was a big deal. But here's the other thing.
Sure.
Everyone's like, well, when do you do the cover? Do you do it before? Do you do it after? Do you do it? And I always tell people, you do the cover when it comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
As you're right, you might be in chapter 2. You might be in bullet point 7. You're like, ooh, this is what the cover should look like. And I always tell people, start looking, Googling images that you like, finding what looks, and then start putting the puzzle together. You have to find a way to get it out of your head onto a piece of paper that makes sense. Then you could show it to somebody who has some form of artistic skill that can then create the cover. So it's a process, but don't think you need to do it in order.
Thank you for sharing. One of the frustrations I hear from many authors is they don't know how to express what they feel or see in their head to the one designing the cover. And so there's a lot of this back and forth. So I love how you are breaking this down and giving people direction on how to start to create it and put it together so you can communicate it and the artistic people can do their part.
So here's here's the next book we're putting out, and depending on when this is actually released, this book could already be out. But going through the cover and design and figuring out what it is, the book's called The Intentional Week, which again I'm amazed doesn't exist, but it doesn't, and that's what we do. So The Intentional Week, and I'm sitting there going, all right, so what is it we want on this cover? How do we want it to look, and how do we want it? So what I started doing is I started Googling words and pictures about intention, and what I want it to be is kind of like this image of chaos on one side, right, where it's like either dots all over the place that come into a funnel and then come out organized on the other, or a mess of yarn that gets pulled into a spindle and comes out organized on the other, because when yarn is in a knot, you can't do anything. When it's actually organized, you can use it to build some good stuff. So these are ideas I have, and I just want to share it just to test this. So when we release this, I'd like to look at our cover and see okay, yeah, that's where we went from. Now, it might be a totally different cover at the time, so please, if you're listening and you see a different book, that's because the process changes, and adaptation is necessary if you ever want to get across the finish line.
Yes. Oh, so good. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And being open to share where you are in the process. Like, this is how it's looking.
Yeah.
These are the ideas and concepts that we're playing with, and being open to adapt and change as it evolves. So yeah, we'll be watching as it comes out to see how your cover evolves and how it's conveying and sharing the message of the Intentional Week. Really, really beautiful. So it's so interesting because we get to talk to you kind of in two places, having released a book and in the middle of creating another book. So it's really a unique place that we're getting to talk with you. So as we're thinking about this, and what I heard you share earlier is the listening to the consistent questions the people that you serve are asking, and noticing there were some consistent things, and they kept saying, where do you have this all in one place? Do you have a book? And so you listened to that, responded to that, and are creating and bringing that forward, and that helped you bring it from someday I'd like to write a book to bringing it forward. I'd love to know what has led you to bring book number 2 forward. What caused you to want to bring that? So we've already have a book, and now you're wanting to bring the second book forward. I'd love to hear what you heard or what led you to want to bring another book forward.
This one is more of like, there's another part of the system that needs to be talked about. Not how to motivate the unmotivated, right? That's all in that book, and if you read that book, you will know how to do it. There's a lot in there to eat, right? But this other one is much more of all right, so now that you're motivated, what do you do? Right? Like how, and there's a little bit of this in the book, Motivate the Unmotivated, right? Using our LP system. But what do you do? And I call it the 6 days in between. The 6 days in between Sunday to Sunday or Monday to Monday, right? That's called the week. And how do we use that to its most availability? So I would say the second one is much more of all right, there needs to be a round 2. I can get people from A to like Y, and I need something that can get them from Y to Z. And that's what the Y to Z is. That's what the next book is. So it's standalone. It's completely a separate concept, but they do pair nicely onto each other. Where it's, okay, here's how you motivate yourself and others to get yourself up and wake up every day. And then here's the system to actually live out the intentional week every single week. Because I always tell people that you're not going to change your life in a week, but you'll change your life if you change your weeks. And everything we do, we live by 7 days. So that's a little bit more of like there's still more I have to share to make sure if you read these 2 books, you will be able to do whatever you want as long as you're willing to stick with it.
So good. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your willingness to say, okay, now let's get them to Z. let's bring them all the way where they can apply this and bring forward all of those things in their life that they're looking to bring forward. So anything that surprised you along the way, like when you started and you noticed it was snowballing, it was becoming a book, were there surprises from that moment to launching it in the world? Were there surprises there, things that you'd like to let fellow authors know about?
Yeah, so my surprises are all good surprises, right? So I hope if you guys are listening to this and you've had issues doing it, this is not me belittling how hard this process is. But my surprises were things like, wow, that 90 minutes is already up. I got so much more to say. We're going to double this. Does that make sense? Like when you're in a state of flow, like not like the state of flow that they've branded now of like a certain mindset, but like when you're just flowing and the ideas are coming out and your fingers are typing and it's like you're typing faster than you're even thinking. You're like, oh, that was good. I'm going to keep that one. Oh, that was really good. And then what I was surprised about was when you use the structure that I use to write a book and the strategy I use to write a book, how simple it is to write a book. I mean, a book is just a bunch of ideas organized together. And again, it depends on what type of book you're looking to write, right? If you're looking to write a nonfiction or a fiction book, I don't know if I'm the guy to give you the ideas on how to do that. I still think 90-minute time chunks would work. I still think getting your ideas out on paper, blending them together. But like a book like what I wrote, Motivate the Unmotivated, which is more of a self-help, self-discipline, self-development book, it's just a bunch of ideas that if you put them all together, they're going to help you do what the title tells you you're going to get. But if you do one of them individually, they also work really, really well. So that's kind of my style. When I teach people stuff and when I write stuff, it's here's one idea. If you use this idea, you will get benefit from it. If you use this idea and then add all the other ideas to it, it's exponentially more effective. So the surprise was when you have a system that forces you to not be overwhelmed. My goal was never to write the book by a certain date. My goal was to give 3 to 5 90-minute time chunks every week to writing the book. And what happened was I've had it as a goal of mine for probably a decade to be a #1 international best-selling author. And it took about 6 months to write this book once I decided to do it and once I realized that I'm never going to write a book if I say I'm going to write a book today. I'm going to write a book this week. I'm going to write a book by the end of the month. I'm never going to do it because things get in the way. But when I said, I'm going to give myself one 90-minute time chunk this week, because I'm working 2 jobs, I got 4 kids, I'm a single mom, a single dad, whatever it might be, but I can give 90 minutes. I can give 30 minutes to organize some ideas. And then all I would do is I would set up, okay, cool. It's almost like I was writing individual like blogs as how I started, right? Like there doesn't need to be structure. I don't even know what chapter it is. I don't even know what chapter it came before or after. It was just chapter blank. Oh, here's a new chapter. Here's a new topic. And what I would do is I would go back in and go, okay, topic about, how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which, yes, that is a chapter in this book, right? What did I mean by that? And I walk people how to teach people, right? And then, okay, so here's a motivational package and here's motivational catalyst. All right, how do I explain this content? And that, because of that, I could sit there and for 30 minutes explain a topic, and the chapter doesn't need to be done because the goal is not an action or a result-based goal. It's a time-based goal, which is the way we teach all of our clients to achieve whatever they want. So that's the biggest thing that I think was a surprise was when you have a structure of dedicating time to it, writing a book is not difficult, and eventually it will happen. It just might take a lot more time chunks for one person versus the other.
Was there a point where you feel like your writing style evolved or you got a little bit more in sync? Like as some authors I talk to, it's almost like their writing voice. At a certain point, they hit, it's clear that this is their way of writing and this is not their way of writing. And when they start to hit that stride, it flows a little bit more. Was that your experience, or was it just continue to be putting these different concepts together?
I think what happened is the confidence in what I'm doing became more real, so I became more confident.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Before I'd have to think about did I become a better writer? I don't think so. Again, I don't think of myself, and this is not like me being self-deprecating. It's just I know it's a skill set that I need to try really hard on. Naturally, talking, I love talking. Writing, not so much, right? But it's the same thing, just a different way of communicating. So I would say what I did was, as it started to become more and more real, and this bullet point started to become different chapters or different longer concepts. And then those concepts started to kind of make sense to be grouped in a certain way. And then being grouped in a certain way started to make, okay, so there's 4 sections of this book. Oh, interesting. Here's how the book's going to work. And then once I recognized, and maybe that's what it was, once I recognized this is how this book's going to work, I was able to knock it out very quickly, right?
Okay.
Here's how it's going to work.
Yep.
There's 4 sections. Each section's going to have a different line and a chapter. Each chapter stands alone, but will flow with the rest. And then there will be a summary that ties it all together, putting the pieces together. And that's how I'm going to write the book, right?
Perfect.
Once you figure that out, hey, this is going to flow from A to Z. And because of that, we're going to make sure we're hitting every point we need along the way.
Great. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. We are getting ready to go to our next commercial break. And as we do that, listeners, I wanted to give you a couple moments to write down some thoughts and take in all the amazing insight and wisdom that Matt is sharing with us about what it's really like to bring your book forward and to what to focus on in bringing it forward, and breaking it into those chunks that you're looking at dedicating the time and figuring out some of the puzzle versus trying to sit down and write a masterpiece, sit down and write a book and just kind of freeze, but really taking those consistent steps and getting into your flow, your style, your way of bringing it forward. And we'll continue our conversation in just 2 minutes.
Announcing a powerful new TV channel featuring programs designed to enhance and transform your life. Make powerful connections, one program at a time. And by doing so, we can bring transformation to the world. Tune in each week to Empowered Connections TV as we add new programs to help you make empowered connections of your own. Visit empoweredconnectionstv.com. That's empoweredconnectionstv.com. And make the most of an incredible life transformation.
Rebecca Hall Gruyter's Speaker Talent Search is looking for speakers wanting to get on more stages. With just one audition, you could open the doors to hundreds of speaking opportunities, reach more people, and expand your impact. Finalists get to audition live in front of leaders looking to fill all kinds of speaking opportunities. Apply now at speakertalentsearch.com. That's speakertalentsearch.com. We look forward to hearing your message.
Welcome back, everyone. I am looking forward to this next segment and all that Matt will be sharing with us. And I hope you had some great notes from the last segment. I was writing things down. I loved his candor, really sharing what the journey is like, tips that have helped him bring his #1 international best-selling book forward that has been so impactful on so many people, some of how to bring your cover design forward, where to even start with that. And I loved Matt's suggestion of, hey, when it comes, capture that and start to work on putting that together and allowing it to evolve and adapt so that it becomes the right cover for your book. And we even got a sneak peek of where he is in his new book that he's bringing forward, and right now what the cover concepts are kind of looking like and the ideas he's playing with. So we're actually getting this privilege of getting to be part of the process and really watching how it evolves. And Matt, I appreciate your openness and your willingness to share what that experience is like, and that you're open to adapting it as it evolves so that the right cover comes forward and matches the book that you're called to bring forward. So, speaking of the new book that you're wanting to bring forward, I do have some questions I want to ask you about that. But before I go there, so listeners, we're going to get to talk about it a little bit. I'd love for you to share about your current book. I want to make sure everyone has the official title, they know where to get it, and they know where they can connect with you further. So, would you please share that information?
Yeah, so the title is Motivate the Unmotivated, and it is the subtitle is A Proven System for Sustainable Motivation. So when you go on Amazon, there actually is another book titled this, which kind of threw me off for a bit just from the first time writing a book of how can we have two. But they're totally different markets that they go into and to serve different clients. But Motivate the Unmotivated, a sustainable solution, or a proven system for sustainable solution or sustainable motivation. Ugh. Like I said, I thought I was good at talking. Looks like I can't do that either today. Go on Amazon, grab it there. You go on our website, lifepulseinc.com. You can grab it there, and hopefully you'd enjoy it. Like I said, we have the Audible versions coming out. We have the digital version, the hard copy, the paperback, whatever you guys want. We have any way you want to take it and read it, we will get it to you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And as we are looking ahead towards your new book, I'm thinking about all of this great information you shared with us about the process and breaking it into pieces. So for this book, as you were starting at this new book, did you already know how it's going to come together and kind of what the structure is? Because it sounds like that was a pivotal moment in the last book that then, oh, I get this. This is how the pieces fit, and this is how it's going to look. And that just, did you have that before, or did it kind of evolve as you were creating it?
So actually, this structure came way before the structure of Motivate the Unmotivated. So for the intentional week, I said, there's not a lot you need to know in order to have an intentional week. We're talking 7 days here, right? Think about if you had to read a book or write a book explaining how people should live their week, there's not much to talk about. Does that make sense? But it's not going to be a huge book. So where's the value? And I said, well, the value in the way we teach is you learn, you do, you teach. You learn, you do, you teach. You learn, you do, you teach. So there's no need to change all the content. So there's chapters, and it's all about value. So it's the value of experience, and every chapter has its theme. And then what I realized was I want people to take action on this stuff. So the whole book is written in a way that for the first 28 days or 30 days, the first month that you go through what I'm teaching you and you live this out, so your first 4 weeks, you're going through what we're teaching as if you're just learning. Here's what we do. Learn it, understand it, right? Get an idea of what's happening. After that, we want you to go back through the same 4 weeks that we're going to put people through. And I want you to learn it in a sense as if we are working as partners together, that you're helping us develop our system for you. And then the third time going through it, which is the next 4 weeks, I want you to do it as if you're teaching your spouse, as if you're teaching your friend, as if you're teaching your employee or your employer. How would you teach this system to somebody else? And what we do this, we do a 90-day goal rush where we guarantee results that will help anyone achieve any goal they want in 90 days, as long as they follow the system, and that's the process that we put people through. So because of that, I already knew what works. I just needed to put it into paper. So I said, okay, well, there's the applicable side of what I'm going to do, right? It's going to be basically a 28-day cycle, and then it's going to be a 90-day program, which everything we do is a 90-day cycle. Once I had that, I said, okay, well, now I still got to write a book, right? You can't just have like a bunch of it's not like a weekly devotional I was trying to do. Like I needed content behind it of some sort, the value of the week. Why does the week exist? So then I started going, all right, what are some points that we'd like to talk about? And that's where, the 10 or 15 chapters came in. So the book is not as intense as Motivate the Unmotivated, but it's way more, it's like Motivate the Unmotivated is use, learn, and implement. This one is learn, use, continue. Repeat. And that's so that now I knew that structure, and I know what needs to be done, and I know what needs to look like, and we could process it and chunk it out very quickly that way.
Wow, powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And do you mind sharing the title? And is this the final title, or is the title still evolving, just so we let people know where we are in the
Well,
process.
I don't know, right? Where it's my title right now, but for the listeners listening, I've worked with Rebecca and her team on Motivate the Unmotivated, and I'm excited to work with them again on the Intentional Week. And what I find is it depends on who you are and what you're writing. If this is a piece of art that you're writing and it's your piece of art, then what the title is, what the cover looks like, what the pages look like, I can understand why you're going to want it your way. Just recognize if you want it your way, don't expect the results that someone else is guaranteeing you or telling you might get. When I work with a publisher like Rebecca, who knows way more than I do about what gets people to read books, because I'm not creating this book just to have a thing on my shelf. I'm creating this book so I can get people to actually take this content in and use it. And the way they'll do it is by it being written well, cover looks good, title works. So when I work with somebody who knows more of what they're doing and more about what they're doing than I do, I don't care if I've taught Google, Twitter, I don't care what it is. I'm not an expert in this field. I'm a student. Teach me. So as of now, the Intentional Week, I think, is going to be the title because I think it's a very attractive title. I think coming out in January, it's going to be an interesting poll for people to want it. And it's really what we teach. We teach intentional growth. So it works well with what we do. Could it change? Yeah, I have no idea, right? As we go through and edit and we work with your team, and a new idea might come up. The cover might completely change. That's why I said it'd be cool to see what happens. So I'm never sold on anything until we do our first print and we go, okay, that looks good. And even then, if I were to get that print back and I get a hardcover or paperback in my hand and I go, this needs to change. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't connect with the customer. Again, my goal is not to put a trophy on my shelf. My goal is to give something that someone looks at and goes, I want to know what's inside that. And when they open it, they go, I need more of that. Not to sell more. That's really, look, I'd love to sell as many of them. That's not my intention. It's to get people to consume the information. Yes. So whatever title gets them to do that is what I want it to be. And I think that title will get people's attention.
Powerful. Thank you for sharing. I love that. I love your openness and clarity on how you're wanting to serve and what your goal is in bringing the book forward, how you're wanting it to be received. I appreciate that. We love working with you. It's been an honor and is an honor, and we're excited about your upcoming book and wanted to see if there is anything else that is on your heart, just as you're reflecting back on our conversation, you're kind of looking ahead, thinking about the journey. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners today to help them bring their messages forward?
Nothing outside of it. If you're having trouble getting started, forget the structure, forget the cover, forget the chapter titles. Just start talking about what ideas you'd like to share. And then the next day, go to a new page and talk about another one. Then go to a new page and go. That's the beautiful thing about having page breaks when you're typing. Is like I'll be typing and I'll be going through and this is a great chapter, and I'll have a comment and I'll go, ooh, intentional procrastination. That's an interesting line. That sounds like a whole chapter. So I might say it and I'll say, I'm going to get to that in another chapter. And then I'll hit a page break and go, next chapter, intentional procrastination, right? Or survival shapes. Like ideas will come as I'm writing and go, wait, is that an idea or a chapter? Is that a piece of a chapter? And I'll be okay letting it flow. So don't think, just start getting it out. If it's in your head, it's never going to be seen by anybody. Get it out on paper, then find somebody like a Rebecca who you can send a manuscript to and go, what do I got? And someone who knows what to look for and go, hey, you have something? It's got to be much better. But there's something there. Or you have something, we can make it much better. Do you want us to, or do you want to do it? But the biggest thing I would say is know what you're doing. If you're writing a book because you want to say you've written a book and you want to put that book on your shelf and look at it every single day, then by all means, have all the time in the world. And no offense to Rebecca, you and your team, they might not be needed. You can literally publish it yourself very easily. If you want it to be seen by many people and you want people to consume it, you need to be willing to have other people give you reviews on what you're doing. Give you criticism on what you're doing, show you ways to make it better so that a more broad base will be willing to read it. And the other thing is if you're looking to write a book and you're like, what's this guy talking about? How do I even do this? My book's going to be out by the time this thing is there, that you're listening to it. Go on Amazon and buy the Intentional Week, honestly. and walk through it. And if you grab a copy of it, I'll sit down with you for 30 minutes, an hour, and I'll walk you through all this stuff one-on-one. So I don't even know who you are who's listening, but if you're listening and you're in this kind of weird state of how do I get this thing going a little bit further to the next stage, get my book, look at it, shoot me an email, and then let us know how we can help, and I'd be happy to sit down at no charge and kind of answer some questions for some people.
Thank you so much for making yourself available today, for your willingness to support our listeners on their journey, and what a generous opportunity and offer for them to be able to get some one-on-one time with you like that. Matt, thank you. I just really appreciate that. And do you mind sharing your contact information one more time just in case anyone missed it?
Yeah, go to lifepulseinc.com. You can reach out at info@lifepulseinc.com if you want to email us, or if you're a social media person, meaning just a person, our handle is always Life Pulse Inc. So at Life Pulse Inc., all one word, and you'll find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You want to get me on LinkedIn, I'm all over the place. So would love to chat, would love to help out anyone if you have any questions. I think helping people get their information out of their head onto paper and in other people's hands is a very important thing of what we do as authors.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And listeners, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope you take a couple moments after the show today to capture some of your thoughts. And maybe you had a couple of, oh, that's an interesting concept that kind of came up within you as you were listening, and write that down and start to see where that will go. Matt's given some really great tips, advice, real experience on and shares on what it's like to bring your book forward. If we can help in any way, we're always honored to do that. You can reach out to us at Rebecca@yourpurposedrivenpractice.com. Always happy to help. Or you can even schedule a time at meetwithrebecca.com, and we're happy to answer questions. Again, I hope that you lean into your author's journey, that you are willing to bring your information, your wisdom, your gifts, your insight forward. It doesn't do any good swirling around in your head. I liked how you shared that, Matt. Like, we need to bring it forward. And I want to encourage you to do that, because people need what you have to share in the way that you can uniquely share it. So be willing to bring it forward, be willing to share it, get support on that journey. And I hope that you have an amazing week, and we will look forward to talking to you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to The Author's Journey. Please join Rebecca Hall Gruyter for another edition of the Author's Journey podcast every Monday on the Voice America Variety Channel. And until we talk again, use some of the tips and inspiration from today's show to guide you as you lean in to bringing your message forward.